All righty. We're going to give everybody one more minute here to join in. And Martin, are you able to share your video, or did you have that they reset your whole country's internet today?
Yeah, no, I'm not able to share my video, John. Sorry.
No problem. You're such a good-looking guy, Martin. You're cheating us all.
Not at 5 o'clock in the morning.
No problem. As long as you're there to answer questions, we're in good shape.
Sure.
All right. Another couple of seconds here and we'll get started. All right. So we'll let the countdown go and we'll be at our 3 o'clock. We are ready to go. So I want to welcome everybody to, let the clock slip. I want to welcome everybody to our session on SyncDB. SyncDB is an exciting new product. It's actually a product built by Martin Trevina, who's on the call with us today, Transforms, and it's using the doForms RESTful services. And Martin is also one of our biggest integrators, so we use him quite often. He knows our product inside and out. He knows our web services inside and out. So not only does Martin build products on top of doForms, he actually does a lot of our custom integrations for us. So big fan of Martin. Martin's a member of the family at doForms, and proud to have him working on this great product. And we're going to talk. Hey, Martin, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Martin is in Australia, so it's 5 o'clock in the morning there, Martin.
Sure is.
Okay.
A nice wet morning to go with it.
All right. So try to stay awake there. I'll keep you awake and I'll keep you hopping with answers and questions. And we'll talk about, what SyncDB is right now. So by the way, we're not going to go into much depth on what the product is from like showing you demos and all that kind of stuff today. So anybody that's interested in SyncDB after this presentation, just contact us and we will set up a deep dive with me, you, and Martin to go really through the product and tell you all the great things, show you how it works. And, if you want to trial it and stuff like that, we can work on that to get you set up. But really great product, and we're going to jump into it now. So let me see, how do I get out of my own way here? All right, so first thing we said is, Martin built this product. He's the owner of Transform. And we built this product kind of together. I called up Martin, I said, hey, I got a great idea. I've got some companies like Oracle asking me if this could be done. What if we were able to build a product that took a doForm right from the structure of the form and basically was able to create a relational database, take our table structure and convert it from an array to another table and build all the keys and, all this great stuff. And you can see the light bulb go off in Martin's head and he's like, hey, I can do this. And together we kind of designed this product called SyncDB. It looks just like a doForms portal. It uses all the features of doForms web services that we built for our workforce manager and a few features that Martin needed specifically to be able to build this product. Basically today, what SyncDB does is, if you think about what doForms is, doForms uses the Google storage, which is not a relational database. Now, there's good news and there's bad news there, right? The good news is relational databases are very expensive to use, and customers could run their bills up dramatically depending on how many reports they run, how much memory they use. Well, in doForms, we don't have those issues. So it allows us to provide doForms at a very affordable price point and at a fixed price point. So we don't have to charge you for how much usage you have or how many reports you ran or all this other stuff. It allows us to create a lot of stability in how you purchase doForms. But for those customers that want to ask all kinds of crazy questions and queries, or they want to use tools like Tableau or Power BI or things of that nature, it's a little difficult. You're not just going to go against the Google flat file system and do that very easily. But with Martin's tool, it becomes very easy to be able to use those products. It becomes very easy to put yourself in a situation where you can start to build out a relational database without having to have a DBA and years of experience and so on and so forth in either doForms or things like Oracle or Azure, right? And then Martin's product really takes doForms to a whole nother level from a audit trail perspective, because with Martin's product, you could literally see every single element that's changed in doForms. So as the workflow happens and somebody changes a field or changes a picture or deletes a signature and puts another, that's all documented in the database that Martin creates. So not only is he building a database, excuse me, I've been doing this all day. Not only does he build a database from your form structure, but then he populates the database with data. He manages any changes to that data as you're using it in the doForms world. And if you go in and add 10 fields to your form, he automatically goes into your database in Azure Oracle and adds those 10 fields in there for you. He also has the ability to consolidate data. So if you have a version 1 of a form and a version 2 of a form, instead of having those as 2 separate data sources, they can be brought together easily in SyncDB. So effectively, what Martin has created is a way for people, like say in the IT world, who want to have total access to their data, unlimited, unbounded, and be able to use all the tools they've been using forever. Well, they now can just put SyncDB in place. It automatically generates everything for them, and an hour later, they're up and they're operational in the database environment they want to be in, and it's their own environment, their own secured environment, so they can work with the data however they want to work with it. Martin, you want to add anything to that?
No, actually, it was quite comprehensive, John.
Very good. Well, you trained me well on this stuff, so.
Yeah.
So a lot of this is kind of going to be a little bit, repetitive. So I'm gonna kind of just talk through it, because this is more about a new product, and it's more about really kind of giving you guys insight as to what the possibilities are, and even why we created this product in the first place, right? So, when you create certain structures in doForms, like you create a table, it goes into doForms as an array. So you would have product bracket 1, price bracket 1, quantity bracket 1, total bracket 1, and then it starts all over again. Product bracket 2, product price bracket 2, so on and so forth. And that's great. We have a report builder. It manages all of that. People are using doForms like crazy. And for the most part, a lot of customers don't necessarily even have the knowledge to know how to query and run tools like Tableau and Power BI and all of that stuff. But as doForms becomes more and more popular, we're getting many, many more IT organizations starting to adopt doForms. We're getting many large enterprises starting to adopt doForms. And these people have a different mindset. They have a different way they want to view data. They have these skills, and they want to be able to use those skills to manipulate their data. So, in doForms, the task for SyncDB in the first part of it is to basically be able to take that table structure in doForms that becomes an array. Even our repeatable section becomes an array. That's okay. You don't have to worry about the flashlight. And basically what winds up happening is Martin takes that, he creates a child table, creates a parent table, creates the keying structure just by bringing down your form and parsing your form structure out. He knows how to create that SQL scheme that basically allows you to then run that SQL schema against Oracle or Azure and effectively create the database for you with all the parent and child relationships, right? So that was the first reason that we thought it would be cool to build a product like SyncDB, because now all your data is relationally structured and it's easier to use those other tools. Then we started looking at this thing and we said, well, part of the problem is, if you go in and you change forms, but you keep them 90% the same, you just add a couple of fields or delete a couple of fields, that has to be able to be managed. And in doForms, if you make massive changes, sometimes you have to create a new version of the form. Like if you want to go in and delete a ton of fields and stuff like that, you have to create a new version, because otherwise you would abandon all this other data. Well, in Martin's world, he doesn't view it that way. He basically says, hey, I could have version 1 and you can tie it into version 2 and you can create a group, a data grouping, and I'll just add the extra fields or keep the fields that you deleted. They'll still say in the group. But both these versions now will be able to populate the table, and the new fields will be there to support the new fields. And the fields that were deleted won't be deleted in the table because they're there to support the existing data that was collected, for the last 6 months, as an example. So it became a great way to consolidate form versions across the product. So all of a sudden we had another great benefit, of SyncDB. Then we started looking at it and saying, well, a lot of times there's a need to have different forms. So you may have a refrigeration repair form and an air conditioner repair form and an appliance repair form. but maybe all their data really at the end of the day, they're just invoices that have different data sources for them, but they all result in revenue and amount charged and labor hours and all of this stuff. And maybe you want to be able to consolidate all of that data in one database, right? And then be able to run a report against all of those different forms reporting in, but really being put into one database and then being viewable as one database. So that was the next value proposition of SyncDB. Hey, I can now take disparate forms, even if they're not the same form, even if they're slightly different, and I'll build out a single database table structure for you. So now we have consolidation of forms across into Martin's SyncDB databases. Then the last thing we looked at is we said, okay, we have customers that'll come in and go, hey, we need, we need CRT 21 status. I don't remember what that was called anymore. And we got to have audit trails for the next 17 years. And we've got to know everything anybody could ever change, and there can't be an issue. Well, Martin captures every single time doForms changes a field, and under any circumstances, it basically taps Martin through the web service and says, hey, I've got to change. And Martin captures that and he puts it into SyncDB in such a way that he's always got the current record, but you can run an audit and go back and see the change history of that particular record over any period of time. And Martin, please jump in at any point and correct me if I'm saying something incorrectly. But it allows you to basically maintain a historical audit trail with who did it, who made the change, when the change was made. You could even see graphics from, hey, this signature image was replaced by this signature image on this date by this person, right? So 100% audit trail. So when we have these big, government deals and some of these agencies where they require these in-depth audit trails to be able to tell everything, we now can do that with SyncDB as a product. And effectively, what it's allowing us to do is it's allowing us to create an environment that basically gives you secure data. It gives you, queryable data. It gives you consolidation of data, and it's really giving you that next level of data manipulation. And we're not expecting Joe the plumber to use SyncDB. We're expecting some of our larger customers. doForms has some of the largest companies in the world using this, and this product is for you guys. It's for you guys that need to go to that next level of data manipulation where you want to really have control over it. So basically, at the end of the day, if you make a form change, and this is probably one of the biggest things too, Martin makes all those field changes for you. So you can kind of seamlessly go out and build your database, you build your form, and if you don't even have a DBA, you could still end up with an Oracle or an Azure SQL database without having to have a DBA, without having to have somebody write the schema. Now, we have products like Sync and Save, right? And Sync and Save can pull data down from the cloud and it can update a database. But the problem is you have to build the database, right? So it's great if you have an existing database and it's already there and you give us a stored procedure and you say, hey, can Sync and Save pull my data down from doForms and then call this stored procedure? Perfect. That could be done, no problem. But if you don't have a database with Sync and Save, you first have to basically create the database, create the data schema, create everything you need in there, create the stored procedure, and then you can have Sync and Save put that data in there, where SyncDB solves that problem. The other problem with Sync and Save, and I'm not putting Sync and Save down, it's a great product and it's used by thousands of people, but if a form changes, you now have to go back and you now have to update your database again. Otherwise, something will break, right? So there's a lot of manual manipulation with Sync and Save. As things are changing, you have to manually kind of go in and make sure you're keeping everything up to date. Make sure your database and your forms are being kept up to date. Martin's really taken a look at that whole entire problem and really solved it by putting a lot of features into SyncDB that make it very, very powerful as a tool. Martin, why don't you talk a little bit about how SyncDB runs, let's say on Azure, and I think you were telling me the other day, like, you're really looking at Azure as your platform just because of some of the features built into that. Talk about a little bit about, if somebody wants to use it on Oracle. Talk about if somebody wanted to use it, let's say, on their own SQL server. Like, how would somebody be able to implement it? What are the multiple options people have for implementing SyncDB?
Okay. The major benefit of SyncDB was its portability. The fact that we can actually run it on a local web server, we can run it in Azure or on using Oracle Cloud. But the beauty of it is that it is transformable. I've gone for fluid mechanics as far as creating databases off schemas coming down from doForms. But the idea is that that could be moved across to any other relational database as well. So it's not totally locked into working on Oracle or SQL. It could be modified for another SQL database. So there's a part of it that's very flexible, very fluid. I'm looking at Azure as a major platform for hosting purely because of the cost benefits of doing it. I've started moving heavily into Azure functions, and I hope to take SyncDB along that path because the cost benefit is just huge. And it's perfect for it because the webhook system coming out of doForms is just phenomenal as far as keeping me up to date on what's happening with the forms. So it's been a real journey, and I must say I'm loving the doForms REST services. They've just blown me out of the water as far as their reliability, their simplicity, and the effortless way we're using them. Now, as far as the front end goes, it is a Blazor front end. Anybody from Microsoft will understand that terminology. So there's no JavaScript involved. It's possible to actually run this in the browser as far as the front end goes. At the moment, it is running on the back end server, but it is possible to run it in the browser itself. I just haven't taken it that far yet. But the big part of this is the back end, and that's the piece that's constantly hearing from doForms and saying there's a new record. Has it been processed? Have we built the relational part of this into the database? And if not, go and do it before we insert the data. As far as the audit trail goes, it's a visual audit trail inside the SyncDB front end. So you can actually inquire and visually see the differences between each edited record on a form. This is very useful for somebody that hasn't got the skills to go in the back end and say, I'm going to build a SQL query to show me the audit trail. If they just want to do a quick check and see how many modifications have taken place on a form, then the SyncDB front end lets them do that very simply. And it's a visual comparison. So they can actually see if a signature's been changed, and it's down to the pixel level. So it would be very hard to forge a signature because digitally it would just be so different. And SyncDB would pick that up. So, and it should.
Martin, you're a portal. So really, if somebody wanted to see the incoming data, they could be just on your system and they would have basically a dashboard of incoming data in real time, right?
Absolutely. And from that point of view, for those that want to know, the database structure is fully versioned, which means nothing comes in without its own version number. So it's incredibly good tracing. There's no such thing as a rogue record. But the way the front end portal actually shows you that comparison, it shows you the before and after, and you can step through each version of that doForm record to see the before and after audit trail. So it's extremely easy to use.
And Martin, you could open up the doForm right from your portal.
Absolutely.
Make a change to it, and if you did that, the change would come back through the system and get back into your database.
Absolutely. You'd see it quite quickly, actually.
Right, so Martin's portal looks like a doForms portal. It takes all your branding, it takes all your color schemes right from your doForms environment through the web services, presents itself as a doForms product, and then effectively shows you all the forms that are being processed from the web services. Martin was saying our web services tap him on the shoulder, so he's not polling. It's not an inefficient polling process. He's getting tapped to say, hey, there's been a form change, there's been data change, there's been a new form submitted, and he's just responding to that and then doing what he needs to do. But then the dashboard that he's created the management console is letting you see all the forms coming in. He has the ability to say, open this form. It opens up in browser mode right on his portal. And like I said, if he makes a change, now that change that he's making on that form is being made up in doForms, all right? And then Martin's getting tapped again and he's saying, hey, retake this data, you just changed me. So, you know, that whole portal could be used for end users to sit there and just manage all the incoming data all day long and make adjustments to it, whatever they need to do. And if somebody did open that form and make a change, not only would it go up and come back down, but it would be documented as part of the audit trail that a change was made after the fact. So, you know, very, very powerful tool. We have a question, John. You want to ask that question?
Yeah, basically they were asking if doForms would consider implementing this concept across the board, because they seem to be having a problem when they create a new or resubmit a published form by adding one or two. And it sounds like SyncDB would help them out, but they already have their own database.
So, I mean, basically, if SyncDB is available for you today, you know, and if this is something that you need, it works off your data. It works off your forms. It's not, you know, very hard to set up. You know, so this is something that you could implement if, like Martin was saying before, if you have a database, you know, that's not Oracle or not SQL Server, you can certainly talk to him about it. And he can certainly figure out if that's something feasible that we can do or he can do. You know, so that's not a problem. You know, Martin, I guess, you know, we also talked about the fact that you could, you know, run this in like a rack space or in somebody's own server in their office, although your preference is sort of the Azure platform. You know, but I think at the end of the day, you know, if you have more questions on this, you should just give us a call and me and Martin will get on the, you know, on the horn with you and take care of it. So basically, you know, when you get SyncDB, you know, you're effectively getting this product and it's working through our web services. You need some connectivity. You can host it. You can have it as your server on your side. Do you have another question there, John?
No, continue for now.
Okay. So simply all you have to do is contact me. I'll, you know, coordinate with Martin. Martin will get on the horn with you. We can talk about what a, you know, trial would look like. We can talk about what does it mean to convert your existing data. Martin's worked with some companies that have years of collected data already. That's a little bit more challenging than just saying, hey, we can start from scratch. One of the things that Martin has built into the product, and this came from sort of real life, was people that are building doForms are not always so structured in their approach. So a lot of the fields that Martin was getting, or a lot of the field names in doForms were like, you know, field 1, untitled 2, untitled 3. And, you know, people when building a form and not thinking about the data aspect of the form may have built forms that are not named correctly, as an example, or tables that are not necessarily named consistently across 2 or 3 forms. So what Martin was able to do is he has a mapping structure built into SyncDB where, you know, you can go into your form and before you start populating it, you could say, hey, I'm going to remap untitled 1 to this name, or I'm going to change table, you know, name to this name. So, you know, let's say you had a non-technical person build their own doForm, and now all of a sudden you want to go back through history and get all that data and sort of bring that form into SyncDB, you know, and now you're going to be responsible for using Power BI to go against that data. It's going to be miserable if half the fields are untitled something, right? So, you know, what Martin gives you the ability to do in setup is to map those fields, give them better names. Now, you know, obviously, if you're going to build a new form with the intention of getting it into SyncDB and knowing that, you know, the data names are going to be really critical, you'll build your data names better. You know, doForms has the ability to say, hey, I'll use the data name just using the caption, or if there is no caption and you don't put a data name, I'll just give it an untitled name with, you know, the next numeric number in the sequence, right? And that works for like 99% of the people that are out there just going, you know, what's important to me is the form. You know, I'm not really looking at, you know, I use the data by email or I run a report. So I'm not really, querying data at the field level. Well, you can go back and use Martin's mapper now to correct those things. And, some of that's important because you don't necessarily want to go back in and touch your production doForms and make all kinds of changes to them and potentially break them. So if you're using SyncDB to grab the data from a set of existing forms, you don't have to touch those forms, but yet you still have the opportunity to clean them up. You want to say anything to that point, Martin? Because I think that kind of came, we got that lesson the hard way when, our first customers weren't new users. They were, hey, I've been building forms for years now.
Yeah, no, it certainly came up that way. But also the ability that once you've done that, you could go back and rerun years worth of forms back into SyncDB. Now, it's not something we promote hugely, but it's certainly doable.
Right. So what Martin is basically saying is, some customers will come over to us, and SyncDB was kind of designed out of the box to be like, okay, you built your form, build your SyncDB, start collecting data, data starts getting processed. We have customers that have 5 years worth of data, 10 years worth of data. They've changed their forms 75 times over that time frame, and going back and getting that data cleanly into SyncDB is possible. It's just not necessarily easy in some circumstances. And not even that it's difficult to do, but it does take some time. So, if you're in a situation where you have years of data and you want to go to SyncDB and it's meaningful to get all your data, in that particular case, you would just work with Martin, and he would consult with you to help you transition your data over to SyncDB. And then, from that point forward, it would be clean and everything would be taken care of for you. And, anybody who wants to ask questions throughout this presentation, feel free to chime in. And anybody who wants to set up a demo of SyncDB, feel free to contact us. We will get that going. Remember, Martin's in Australia, so the meetings have to be kind of early or late in the day. We always tend to set up Martin, so he's got to be up at 3 o'clock in the morning because we always forget, what time frame he's in. But, that also gives us support pretty much around the clock because we can support you on SyncDB here from the States, and Martin can support you on the other 12 hours of the day. So, it's basically a product that can be well supported throughout the doForms organization 24 hours a day. So Martin, talk a little bit about, your grouping structure and sort of why you put that in place.
Okay. I suppose the driver of this is that I've been working heavily with API integration over the years. And one of the problems I've found with doForms was that if you built a number of forms, they all contain a single invoice structure. The way of getting all that into one relational structure or one table that you're possibly integrating with an external API was the ability to group those forms by something in common. Now, it's different if you've got version 1, version 2, but I may have, as John was saying earlier, a refrigeration repair form, and then down the track I might have a stock take form of some description, but they both contain a basic invoice. Now, if I'm using a product like Xero or Sage, any of those accounting products now have big APIs around them. So we've got the ability to integrate that data automatically into them. And by using a single structure in your database, you can do that, but you've got to group your forms into a way that they can keep populating that one table. Now, provided the naming is correct, and if it's not, SyncDB's got the ability to change the naming for you. So we've got all this flexibility, and grouping is one of the most powerful features of SyncDB.
So Martin, I want to jump on something that I just heard you say, but it sounds like, I've been saying Oracle and Azure. It sounds like you're saying that the infrastructure of SyncDB also lends itself to be able to be an integration into, large accounting systems and ERP systems and healthcare systems that are probably relationally based anyway.
Absolutely. But it goes further than that, John, because it allows you to correct the sins of the past. and we've all got them. Technology's built on them. But the ability to actually restructure that data or rename that data on the way through, companies pay a fortune for someone to sit there and do that, or write the scripts to do that. This is just doing it for you automatically.
So basically, we could have a customer that's been doing doForms for a long time. They have a bunch of data. They want to get it into their ERP system or some accounting system, and effectively, this gives you the ability to consolidate your data from multiple forms. It gives you the ability to cleanse your data names, and it gives you the ability to then ultimately be able to call some of these other systems and do the insertions into their databases.
Absolutely. If anything, it's one of the most powerful ways of doing that. It's one thing to do it from a human perspective, but to actually have a machine that does it not only saves you a lot of time, but it keeps things accurate. Computers don't understand inaccuracy like that.
So to make a point, there's really two products here. There's the out-of-the-box experience, which is you can effectively build a form, install SyncDB, get a relational database, and be on your way without ever looking back, and very minimal setup, right? And there's a second product here that says, hey, this infrastructure that Martin has built is 80% of any infrastructure that would be needed to basically integrate with any of the major products out there. And, correct me if I'm wrong, Martin, but you're saying, hey, if I got the 80% done, contact me and work with me, and we can get that other 20% over to that other system without having to charge you for 100% effort.
Of course.
Very good.
It's a very powerful feature.
So, and unlike, so if you think about the two products now today at doForms, or a couple of products, you've got our standard SOAP services. Now you've got a full range of very intelligent bidirectional web services. You've got Sync and Save, which was designed more around a sort of standard set of connectors, like for SharePoint and Salesforce.com and QuickBooks and other products. And more and more, we have customers coming to doForms asking us to integrate with a lot of other systems. And here's the problem. I'm gonna tell you guys what the problem is, because some of our competitors, they make these claims like we're using Zapier and they have 9 million interfaces to everything in existence, and we've already used them to create an interface to this, right? Well, that works great if your product is frozen and their product is frozen and all you're doing is a mapping between the two. That's perfect, right? Martin, how many of our customers use the same form every single time between customers? Never, right?
Never.
Right. So like literally for us to turn around and say that, we have this integration to 30,000 products because we use something like one of these other Zapier things, would be a bunch of nonsense, because the minute you custom build your own form or you build a form unique to your business, that's not going to automatically map through some Zapier gateway. You're going to have to totally remap that whole thing over again, and then you're paying for two different products again, and you're paying for somebody to learn their product and to do all the mapping. And then the minute you change something, you got to go back in and remap it all again. So now you need an IT person just to manage the gateway between you and this supposedly out of the box connector that company that you're using. So, at the end of the day, we view the world a little bit differently at doForms. We view the world and say, we're not some company who decided to build 30,000 one-page crappy forms and think the world is going to knock on our door and scroll through our library of forms and find the one they want. Our customers are building crazy forms. I mean, we have customers that have 30,000 questions in their forms. We have customers that are taking hundreds and hundreds of pictures. We have customers that have their forms calling other forms and passing data between forms and getting data back from forms between forms. Those structures are not going to be easily mapped to some third-party, mapping product that claims, hey, I got 900 products, let's just do it and it's going to support every one of them. So, anybody buying into that, it's kind of absurd. What we're saying to you guys is, hey, we've built a really solid infrastructure. we've put enough flexibility into it that not only can we map to really intelligently built forms, but we can map to some pretty badly built forms, and still fix them without having to go back in and touch everything. And then we have all the infrastructure to manipulate that data. And we have all the professional services infrastructure to do even further manipulations and really get that data into either a generic Oracle or Azure database that we build for you, or just map it into an existing database that you may have by using about 70% of the product. Maybe at the end of the day, it doesn't build the Oracle database or the Azure database, it just utilizes a database that's already there. So, I want to make the point that what you're hearing about today is the ability to go beyond sort of the platform of doForms and really take charge of your own data and really do integration into systems in a very accurate way with a tremendous amount of integrity, a lot of timeliness, and have somebody that can help you make that happen. So it's one thing if we just sold the product and said, here, good luck. You have access to the person who built it. They're a major part of the doForms family. They do a tremendous number of integrations for us now. Even integrations, Martin does integrations for us that have nothing to do with SyncDB just because he's got such a grasp over our web services. I could tell you one of the products that he just helped us with, a company basically gave their patients, it's a healthcare, so a telehealth solution, and they gave the patients these scales and cuffs and blood pressure things and all this stuff that all had radios, wireless radios built into them. And the people could step on the scale and it would wirelessly transmit their weight back to that company's website. And Martin went in and he went to about 4 different companies, pulled all that data out, consolidated it, pushed it all up to doForms, made it a data source into another form, which is then presented to a clinical person who then uses all that information to assess whether that patient needs a follow-up call or not. And we were able to use Martin very effectively to build a whole interface infrastructure for that. And part of that is the fact that he's able to use pieces of SyncDB. Part of that is the fact that he's just got that overwhelming grasp over our web services. So what I want you guys to hear today is, one, we've got this great product now called SyncDB because of Martin, and 2, we've got this great third-party guy who can do any integrations we need help with, who's really got a grasp on this product, and we turn to him. We have other people that do integrations, but Martin's really become part of the family here, which is kind of why I have him on the session today, and why he's our go-to guy now for the majority of our integrations, especially the complex ones. He's also a database expert, so it helps to have a lot of other skills. Martin, why don't you talk about what it would take if somebody really wanted a free trial of this thing? What needs to happen?
Okay. Most of the trials we've set up are just available via an Azure web connection. It's more an issue of what forms they would want to trial, getting a look at how they've managed that, the naming conventions, because obviously if they're not named particularly well during a trial, how much are you going to change? What do you want to see? So we're happy to spend some time showing what it can do. It's more an issue of where they want to take it later, because there's planning involved.
So if somebody contacts us after the session and says, hey, I've been a doForms guy for a while, or I'm a potential customer and I want to see if I can build a form and migrate the data to Azure or Oracle, we would basically work with them, understand which form. If they may have 30 forms in their account, but obviously as a free trial, we're not going to do 30. We would say, what's your critical form? What's your form that gathers your most information? We would bring it into SyncDB. That's going to be very, very telling immediately, right? Because the first thing you do is break it down into all its individual fields and their names.
That's right.
Right. So all of a sudden you're going to have this database schema that you're looking at that's untitled 1, 2, 3, 4, 7, 9. Maybe the caption was, please click here to, do this. And now your data name is please click here to do this. And you're going to look at this thing and you're going to go, wow, I wouldn't want a database based on that. I want to put more intelligent names there. And Martin would work with you and we would go, okay, what's this untitled field here? Well, that's our this. Okay, let's rename it that. Oh, we want to do two tables, but we want them to both marry into one table. Let's give them both the same table name, even though they're different in two different forms. And, we would set up a trial environment with you, and get some of your data into the system for you. And basically, you can take a look at this thing. So, no real risk involved. We're not asking you to take a leap of faith. The doForms way is to be able to show you what we can do. It's pretty good to get started. So if this is something that you are interested in taking a look at and seeing what the benefit is for you, feel free to reach out and contact me, and I'll get this set up for you. There are costs. We'll share those costs with you, and when you contact us. I don't really want to get into costs over the session here. It's not prohibitive. It's not cheap, but I can tell you that the cost of a DBA to do this work is not cheap. So you basically, if you don't need a DBA, you're replacing a $200,000 a year person with somebody who can get all of this data into a relational database for you, for a much lower cost than that, and significantly lower cost than that. So, at the end of the day, if this is something that you need to do, the money savings on working with SyncDB over trying to do this by, hiring a third party, a consultant, somebody to come in and just take the data from doForms and try to do these things for you outside of this infrastructure will cost you head over heels a ton more money than it ever will to purchase SyncDB and get yourself up and operational literally in hours. So just the time to get you up and operational is a cost savings, and the overall cost of the product is just, in comparison to the alternatives is minuscule. So, I don't say that to put the product down. Basically, doForms, attempts to give a really affordable product and with a ton of functionality. And I can tell you SyncDB falls into that category. Martin, do you have any future plans for SyncDB? Do you see it taking on new life? I know we've talked about it as becoming a new sort of maybe sync and save at some point that allows you to do cloud to cloud, where sync and save today requires a Windows device to run it.
Well, honestly, purely because I love developing, it could go anywhere. It's just up to me at the moment to decide where the cost savings are, and where the benefit is. As far as cloud to cloud, it's probably already doing that. Some of the integration work that I've been doing with doForms is going to find its way back into SyncDB, I suspect, mostly around Azure functions, purely because of the cost benefits. For me, it's got to be a highly cost beneficial proposition for any program. So if it costs good money to buy, it shouldn't cost good money to run.
Right.
So I can see quite a few changes coming up for SyncDB that we haven't discussed, so I'm not going to discuss them here, I'm afraid.
No problem. So, Martin, I want to take a few minutes at the end here to thank you, and thank you for all the integration work you've been doing with us, because that clearly helps us win business and makes a lot of customers very happy to know that they can come to us and we can solve all their problems, even on some crazy integrations. I could tell you, Martin's the first guy willing to jump in and call up the third party company and understand what their APIs are and come back and be able to give me a proposal. So, great guy to work with. And, whether you need SyncDB or whether you just need, some custom integration into, some ERP system or something like that, feel free to reach out to me, and we'll get Martin on the horn and get you going. And Martin, I know you commented on you think that the new RESTful services are really powerful. You were pretty influential in working with our team to build the missing pieces that you needed. Did you see the team as being responsive, or were you able to get the services you needed in time? And
oh, absolutely wonderful. Don't worry, there's a long list of more changes I want too, John.
I'll tell you what, I think if I had 8 million features in doForms, somebody would still be calling me and asking for one more. And like everything else, I could only imagine over time, SyncDB is going to grow into something we don't even recognize today. So,
Probably.
well, I guess, Martin, one last question for if anybody's on the call who would like to also be able to develop their own portal, based on the RESTful services that you have, what would you say, do you see it as something somebody could certainly say, hey, I've got something I want to do with doForms? Do you think it'd be possible for me to take these web services and build my own portal?
It is totally possible. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it. It's certainly a challenge as far as trying to get the look and feel of the doForms portal, but it totally depends on the technology you're using as well. I went with quite an early run of a technology that's going to really affect front end development on the web, and found that very, very responsive. But it's a challenge. It took quite a long time to sort it out, but the beauty of it is we've now got the REST services to the point where they can do it, and they provide the appropriate information when you need it. So the portal I've built with SyncDB literally is a front end portal for doForms. You log in with your doForms login and password. It tells you which account you're in. It follows all the styling changes that you can support in doForms. So there's a lot there. And good luck to someone that wants to do it. They better have some time on their hands.
Right, and you kind of blazed the trail there. So you had a little bit of, not only did I have to do it, but I had to kind of tell those guys the ones they were missing and, test some of it for them. So we appreciate all your input. It certainly should be a little easier now for the next person. And, the other comment too is, we made a portal together called SyncDB that looks just like doForms. You don't necessarily have to do that. We added a bunch of RESTful services in there that allowed Martin to go in and go, hey, grab the logo that they're using in doForms today, grab the color scheme that they're using, grab the naming conventions that they're using. So, you're able to build your own solution that's totally branded by you, totally has your look and feel, but just uses our RESTful services. But you also have the ability to grab all those things from doForms now through the services if you want it to look, very much like a similar experience. So, but with that said, Martin, we are out of time, and I will contact you as we get contacted from, there was a lot of people on this session. I'm just looking through the participants now. So hopefully we'll get some really good conversations going in the next couple of days there. Once
That's
again,
fantastic, John.
is that a question there, John? Or
No.
No. Okay, we're good. All right. Thank you, everybody. I'm gonna bring this session to an end. Martin, as always, thank you. Always a pleasure to do business with you, and thank you for participating and being up at 5 o'clock in the morning here with us. So,
Not a problem, John. Thank you very much for having me.
thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.